Welcome back to the Black Doctor Talk podcast, everyone. My name is Dr. Christopher Holmes, host for this episode and member of the Black Doctoral Network. So today I am joined by an amazing woman. Okay, can I just simply say that? She's amazing. She's smart, she's intelligent, she's beautiful, she's youthful, and she has so many great things going on that we're going to share with you today. Today's guest is Dr. Rikesha Fry Brown. She is a psychologist, educator, administrator, speaker, facilitator, trainer, and author. Dr. Fry Brown has an earned doctorate of philosophy and counseling psychology from Howard University. And as an educator at heart, Dr. Fry Brown has served as a special education teacher for grades pre-K 2, 4, and 6 through 8 in Florida, Georgia, and the District of Columbia. She has been a special education coordinator and special education parent liaison. For you guys that don't know that, or what that is, that's very important for parents to be involved in their child's education. Dr. Fry Brown is an adjunct in psychology at Clark Atlanta University. She is co-owner and executive director of the African American Honors Collective and consults with businesses on engaging scholars of color, particularly those from historically Black colleges and universities. As a practitioner, Dr. Rikesha Fry Brown was a co-founder and clinician of the Kindred Family Wellness Group, a counseling, consulting, and coaching practice in the metro Atlanta area, where she specializes in working with children, youth, young adults, and women to include experience working with families, couples, and parents. I told you guys she does a lot. So I want you to put your virtual hands together and help me welcome my guest, Dr. Rikesha Fry Brown. Thank you, Dr. Brown, for being here with me today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Listen, you have me out of breath.
Me too sometimes.
I need you to slow down. You got so many great things going on. Everybody knows that I'm an educator. So when I have other educators on this podcast, I get really, really excited, and we can go on and on and on. So I promise you guys, this will not be a 2-hour interview, okay? We're going to keep it down to a size. I'll keep my emotions in check. But again, thank you for being here. You have so many great things going on. But before we get into all of those great things, behind every great woman, there is a story, there's a history, there's a past of experiences. So I want to start there. Talk to us a little bit about you when you were younger. How would you describe yourself? Where did you grow up? Did you ever see yourself walking in the light that you're currently walking in?
I don't know that I ever saw this when I was younger. I grew up in Denver, Colorado. Yes, there are Black people in Colorado. No, they're not all in my family. But even in that vein, I was an accelerated student and generally would see my friends in the hallway and be in classes where I was the only African-American child. Wow. And that wasn't always the case, but it was the case far more often than I liked. And so I remember when it was time to go to college, I knew I wanted to go to an HBCU. I did not want to be the only anymore. Yeah. I had been called an Oreo and, Rikesha's Black on the outside, but she's white on the inside. She thinks she's smarter than everybody else. All of the things that we would hear about academically advanced Black children in the 80s and 90s. It was really a thing that was sometimes hard to overcome. And so when I was going to college, I wanted to go to an HBCU. I knew I wanted to go to an HBCU, and that was my only goal. I had full ride scholarships to go to schools in Colorado. And I was like, no, I want to go be where all the Black kids are smart and all the Black kids are high achieving, and everybody wants to do the more. But I didn't know what that looked like. I didn't know what that meant for me. I actually ended up at Hampton. Hampton was not my first choice, but it was the best decision that I could have ever made. And
the real HU.
The real HU. And I am an expert on that because I went to both.
Okay? Oh, wow. Okay.
I got my undergrad at Hampton and my doctorate at Howard. So I've been a student at both of them. So I am the expert. Hampton is the real HU. Sorry, Howard. But I say I'm on the Black college tour, my own personal Black college tour, because I did, my undergrad at Hampton. I did my master's at FAMU. I did my doctorate at Howard, and then I taught at Clark and Spelman. I went back to Hampton. Now I'm back to Clark, and we'll see what the next stop is. I'm not sure yet. I need to hit Morehouse while I'm here, make sure I'm checking all the boxes.
Yeah, why not?
When I went to Hampton, I actually had never been there until I went to move in. I had never even been to Virginia until I went to move in for freshman orientation. And I got there and it was just everything that I had hoped that it would be. That, seeing the beauty of excellence in education and Black people all in one spot was like, this is it. This is what I've been waiting for. This is what I wanted. And so HBCUs cultivated something in me before I got there. And now as an educator, that's where I plan to always put all of my energy in education. And you'll see that as we talk through what my experiences have been, it's always about Black folks. And I do that intentionally, not as a secondary thought, but because it was very impactful in my own experience. I grew up in a very diverse neighborhood. I was not the only Black child. That is not what I'm saying. I grew up with a lot of different people, but educationally, I saw that there was a rift, that there were some students who were given opportunities that other students weren't given. In the 90s, they were doing the tracking. And so they would put kids in like those 4 groups. And I was usually separated from my peers or from my Black friends, let me say that. And what I saw in that was that like we were all the same. And I didn't know why I got picked and they didn't. I didn't know then what the decision-making factors were behind that, but I saw it and I didn't necessarily like it. I don't want to be singled out. I don't necessarily want to be different. I value and understand being singled out and being different now in a way that I couldn't then, but that drove me to want to be in a space where I didn't necessarily have to fit in, but I didn't have to stand out because of race.
Right.
My standing out was going to be because of my accomplishments, not because I was one of the good ones. And I didn't like the feeling that I had about that. And so that's kind of how I got there, but I still didn't know what I wanted to do. I got to Hampton. I was an English major for like 4 days. It did not happen. I didn't stay long. I went to the first English department meeting and they started reading off all the books that you had to read. And I am someone who can be a little defiant. So I love to read for leisure, but once you tell me I have to read something, then I don't want to read it. So I was like, oh, this is not going to be fun for me. What else can I do? And so I kind of talked to some different people and walked around and I was like, I think I could do psychology. Let's see where that goes. But even when I went into psychology, I had an emphasis in education because my goal was to be a teacher. I didn't know what kind of teacher I was going to be, but I wanted to be a teacher. And so I majored in psychology and had an emphasis in education. And I was like, okay, I'm going to be a teacher. And then that didn't work out that way. It was like, okay, well, then what am I going to do now? And so I started a master's program for counseling, school counseling, which is where I started. And that was actually during that time is when I got my first teaching job. And even in that, I had no idea. When you think about, I'm going to be a teacher, you think I'm going to be like a kindergarten teacher or a 3rd grade teacher. I ended up being a 6th through 8th grade self-contained emotional and behavioral disorders teacher for 2.5 years, 3 years. And I taught reading, language arts, science, social studies, and math to 6th through 8th grade students with behavioral disorders in Florida for my first teaching job. Right. Oh. And I was like, this is not what I thought I was going to be doing. But that psychological background really showed me a lot about children and how we interact with children and what we require of children that is both rational and irrational. And some of it is sound in what we believe about physiology, and a lot of it is not sound in what we believe about physiology and their abilities. And so I was like, okay, let's figure out what we're going to do with this. And so I started with school guidance, and then I realized that I'd liked some of the mental health things. So I did both school guidance and mental health counseling. And then I was like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do now, but I'm ready to leave Florida. So I applied to a graduate program. And I got into the doctoral program at Howard University for counseling psychology. And even there, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And it was, again, the best decision I could have made for myself. So I got there, did most of my internships with children, and learned along the way that I was really good at working with women, and I had a passion for women, and specifically Black women and Black womanhood. And so that brings us to, I guess, what I think I answered like 5 of the questions, but
No,
that
I
brings
love
us
it.
to how I got to doing my research, and where I am today as what I have coined as a women's wellness curator. So I think I took you through about 16 years.
No, well, let's talk about this. So, man, we could go back and talk about a lot of things. I do want to ask you this. The school that you worked at initially, what was the makeup of that school?
It was primarily Black. It was in Tallahassee, Florida. It was not all Black, though. They had an IB program at that
Mhm.
school. And so, that tends to be more of a choice program. And so it was a relatively diverse program. I mean, school. The majority of the students in the area that were from that area were Black students. Then there were some of the students who were in the more advanced programs. And then in my classroom, actually, most of my students were Black and male. But I remember at least 2 students that were white males. And then I did have a few female students as well, but no, I had both white and Black female students in the time that I was there as well. And so I saw a lot of different things. But the majority of the makeup of that class for me was generally Black and male.
Yeah. I taught when I first started teaching, it was a majority African-American school, impoverished. A lot of the students that were in the SPED program were Black boys.
Mm-hmm.
And had been served for years.
Mm-hmm.
I say served, but truly underserved is really the case of
Right.
what I was seeing. And for me, and it may have been the same thing for you, seeing some of those inequities is really what drove me to get my doctorate, because I wanted to understand why these issues existed and why they weren't getting better. That was like, we have all this stuff going on, all these things in place, but I don't see a shift in a positive direction. Somebody helped me understand, and I knew nobody could tell me. And I was like, I think I need to go learn on my own. So when you got into the doc program, let's talk about the first couple of years. Let's talk about that transition. What was that like? And then how did you adjust?
So the doctoral program there were a lot of different things happening just in my life at that time. So I moved from Florida to DC. I was living in Alexandria, but I moved up to the DMV area. And I had to work. It was expensive to live in that area, and I didn't have a stipend. So I had to work. And so I took a job as a special education teacher. So I was working a little more than part-time. I'm thankful that all of the schools that I worked with were willing to work with me. So, there were some days that I had classes in the middle of the day, or I had to go to my internship for a day, and they were willing to work with me, and I was thankful for that. So I did a lot of push-in or pull-outs as a special education teacher, which worked because they were in classes that I could go into, and if I wasn't there, it wasn't a big disruption.
Right.
But for me, it was like, okay, I got to figure this out. I want to be a student. I want to understand where we're going, but I also very much want to be a teacher and be effective in my role in this space. I remember the first meeting that we had with our doctoral program, and everybody's like, okay, who wants to go into academia and who wants to go into private practice? And there were 10 of us in the room, and 9 people wanted to go into private practice. And I was the only person that wanted to go into academia.
Wow.
I knew I always wanted to be in education. I always wanted to be a teacher. I didn't know what kind of teacher I was going to be, I guess. So I've tried all of them. I've been up and down the ladder for that, but I always wanted to be a teacher. And so I went in with that goal in mind. But I also had a lot of different passions, which is what you will see about me now, is that in having all of those passions, I kind of have explored a lot of different things. So the best advice that I got, if you are thinking about getting a doctorate, I give this information out freely. I'll charge you the next time I have to say it. The best advice that I got was to write all of my papers in all of my classes on the topic that I was most interested in. And so everybody knew by about the second class, if there was a paper, Rikesha was going to write on Black women. Like whatever the paper was on, we're taking vocational counseling, Black women in vocation. We're taking testing, Black women in testing. Like whatever class we were taking, I wrote on Black women. And the benefit of that, for those who don't know, was that when it came time for me to do my dissertation, I had a wealth of information. I had studied Black women from every angle, upside down, right, left, and behind. And so then it was time for me to decide what I wanted to insert into the field based on what I had studied. And so I was practicing as a clinician with children and youth, but I was researching as a scholar, Black women. And so I had to kind of make a decision, on which direction I was going to go. And I decided I was going to go both. So I have still kind of done both of those ways. So my research is very much rooted in Black women. It is specifically mediated images of Black women and identity development. But my clinical work has been primarily with children, youth, and young adults. And then I got a lot of women clients because I had a wealth of information about women. And so now here we are.
I love that. But you were able to kind of, intersect your passion for children and your lived experience as a Black woman, right?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I think that's important. And so for people that are out there who are watching, you already gave some free advice, which I love because I give that same advice. I laughed out loud because everybody knew when there was time for a presentation, they knew exactly what I was going to talk about every time. But just like you said, when I got to comps, I had so much research already done. I was not staying up late like some people, like stressed out. I just like, oh, I'll pull this paper, I'll pull this document, pull this article. I already had it. So that's great, great advice. Now, if you guys don't know what you're going to do, that's okay too. Everybody does not enter the program knowing exactly what the focus is going to be. You just got to figure it out. You have a little bit more work to do, but you still can get it done.
Yeah.
If you're in the program and you're researching one thing and your 9 to 5 is something different, that doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. You just have very diverse interests, and there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing. And as you can see, you can do them both. Yeah. You can do them both and do them well. So then you finish. I want you to talk about the feeling that you felt when you completed that doctorate.
Relief, I think, was the biggest feeling. My family and I, we laugh. The day of my dissertation defense, like as soon as they said, congratulations, Dr. Fry Brown, you've passed, the statement that they give you, we left out of the room and we're walking to the car and I started crying and I couldn't stop. And I think I cried for like an hour, and I had the worst headache I had ever had in my life. Like I'm not a migraine person, but I believe that I had a migraine that day. And it was just so much pressure, the buildup. It was 6 years of all of that coming to that moment. But we got to the restaurant. I wanted to go to PF Chang's. So we got to the restaurant and I'm trying to pull myself together and I ordered my food and the waitress said, "I'm sorry, can you repeat yourself?" And I just burst into tears. I just couldn't keep it together. And my husband said, "She'll have the honey chicken, don't mind her." So we laugh about that still to this day. Like I just could not keep it together. And it wasn't even tears of like pain or sorrow or joy. I think it was just a cleansing in that moment of all of the emotions and the stress and the hard work and the late nights and the early mornings and all of the things that I had put in to get to that moment. And I wasn't somebody who went in knowing what I wanted.
Yeah.
When I went to the interview, I remember I'm sitting at this table with people who know what they want. And I didn't know what I wanted. And that's okay too. And so if there's someone out there who feels, that you are uncertain, unsure, and maybe even unqualified because of that, just know that you don't have to know right now. I tell my students I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. I'm trying it all. I'm doing it all. I have given myself permission to try and to be really good at things and still walk away, and to not be good at things and still walk away. And to be able to say at the end of the day that I've tried, that I am fulfilled in the fact that I know that I'm doing things that I love, that I have tried things that I've always wanted to try, and I still have a list. And so if you don't know what you want, but you think that you might want to go down this path, go down the path, walk it, see where it takes you. It might take you someplace that you expect, and it might take you someplace that you have no idea about.
Yeah, but I do believe even if you get to that unknown place, you're still right where you're supposed to be.
Absolutely. I wouldn't change it for the world.
Yeah. Now you do all of this and then you decide you want to dabble in higher ed.
Yeah.
How
So
did that
higher
happen?
ed decided that it wanted me. I I wanted to be a professor. So I was adjuncting at Spelman and Clark. And I had a private practice in Lilburn, Georgia. So I was doing my private practice, doing some consulting, some presenting, and I was adjuncting, hoping to get a full-time professorship. That was what I thought I wanted. And I got a call asking me to come back to my home by the sea at the real HU, and to step into a role that had been instrumental. When I was at Hampton, I was in the Honors College, and Dr. Freddie T. Davy was the director at the time. And she had just been such a mentor to me while I was there and even after I graduated. And her successor was also a very good friend and mentor of mine. And so he was leaving, and he had given them my name as someone who might potentially be a good fit for this position. And so when they called me, I was like, no, I'm not qualified to do this. I have no idea what this would look like. And so I talked to, my mom, I talked to my husband, I talked to my mentors, I prayed about it, I cried about it, I said no, and then we moved to Virginia. And I took on that role, and it was such an amazing experience. I spent 5 years there.
Wow.
When I went, I said, I'm going to give it 5 years. I want to be here for 5 years. And it was an administrative position in higher ed. So I was running the academic program for honors for the entire university, not just the honors college, but in addition to the honors college program. And then, we say like, I'm going to be someplace 5 years, and, that 5th year comes and it's like, okay, I'm going to give it 6, I'm going to give it 7. And my life circumstances just required that when that 5th year came, it really was time for me to go. And so I'm so thankful for the opportunity that I had to be there, for all the students that I met. I did not get to teach psychology while I was there, but as the honors director and the curriculum coordinator for honors, I did get to develop a lot of classes. And so I developed, one of the classes that I developed was on self-care. I would sit with my students, and in this hustle culture, the young people are burning the candle at both ends, and they've learned that from us, right? That you give, go, 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 go. And we've not done a good job of teaching ourselves or our children how to be intentional about their selves, their own independent selves. We herald accomplishment, but we don't herald health. And so I developed a self-care course, and it was the most popular course that I had in those moments, just by virtue of the fact that what led to that, I gave my students an assignment in one course to do 90 minutes of self-care over the next 14 days, and they panicked. I don't have time for that. How am I supposed to do this? Where am I going to fit this in? What does that even mean? How does this look? And so I was like, okay, we have to do better. We have to be better. And I wanted to teach my students how to care for themselves and what that looked like, and how it was a holistic experience, not just the pampering that we like to do, right? Going to get your nails done can be a form of self-care, but it should not be your only self-care. Right. And so I developed the course, and I loved it. And so that was kind of how I stayed in my clinical role, even while I was doing something outside of the clinician's body, if you will. But yeah, so I'm all over the place. But I
love that. And I think that speaks to the power of relationships, though. And we didn't talk about this, but you obviously had a support system to get through that dissertation and complete it in 6 years. You talked about your husband, so I know he was a big advocate for you. You had a mentor, you had family rooting you on and cheering you on. I mean, they let you cry for an hour. So of course you had a support system.
Right. And kept eating.
That chicken, that honey chicken. But it's important that you create strong friendships, strong relationships, people that believe in you, so that opportunities present themselves to you because of who you are, not just because of who you know, but because they know you and they know who you are and what you can do. Your name came down that pipeline as a potential candidate for that position. And simply your goal or your answer just had to be yes. Although
Yeah.
you were thinking no, but you
I
said yes,
wanted
you
to
got
say
all that.
no a couple of times.
Yeah. And
I will
so,
say, building strong relationships has been one of the most beneficial things for me. I have not applied for a job in probably 20 years. You
wow.
know, every job that I've had has been because I've done good work somewhere else and someone has put my name forward. Now I've had to fill out the paperwork,
Right.
the application because of, the paperwork, but I've not, let me not say that. I have applied for jobs. I have not gotten a job that I've applied for. All of the jobs that I've gotten have been because of relationships, because someone had something good to say about me. Someone knows the work, the caliber of work that I do, or had a belief in my ability to do the work if it wasn't something that I had already done before. And so not burning bridges, right? Being willing, being open, and then following through on what you say that you're going to do is important. I've never left a space that I couldn't go back to. I have not, there have been times, right, that I have wanted to leave some spaces and never have to go back, but I try to make sure that my reputation precedes itself, that I am respectful, respectable, and respected in all of the spaces that I go into and the spaces that I leave. And that's not always easy, right? There are people who don't like me. That's okay. But what they can't say is that I don't do my work. They can't say that I'm not effective. They can't say any of those things. And so, yes, in my younger years, I got let go from a position like other people have too. I'm not perfect. No one is perfect. But my point in saying that is that relationships, connections, I think even more than the networking, the community building has been has been of such benefit to me as I have gone through my academic career. It's been fantastic.
Yeah, that preaches back right there. That alone preaches. So it doesn't matter how smart you are, how talented and gifted you are, what you just said, your character speaks volumes for you, and it will speak for you to other people in rooms that you're not even in.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what the work that you've done has been a testament to that. And so you leave the DC area, you come back home. I call it home. You come back to Georgia because she's here now, and everybody knows I'm here in Georgia as well. And you continue to work. Let's talk a little bit more about your work with women.
Okay.
So in that area, what are you seeking to do? What's your goal?
In the area of women right now, specifically Black women, I am seeking to increase wellness, holistic wellness. I am a major advocate for therapy. Everybody needs to go. I don't think that there's anybody that would not benefit from going to therapy. I am a major advocate for putting down the cloak and the cape of strong Black womanhood and resting in the fact that we are people, we are human, not superhuman, right? I have an unpopular opinion. I am not a fan of the soft life mantra. I don't wish to have a soft life, but I do not believe that it is my destiny to struggle. So I understand where people are going with the soft life thing, but I don't like the tenets of it. I don't just want things to be given to me with no problems. But I don't believe that my destiny in life, that my goal in life is to struggle and have to, grit and scrape by forever. And so part of my message with Dr. Rikesha, the platform, you can find me on all social media platforms, Dr. Rikesha, is that we can be well and we can be holistically well. And that starts with turning our focus to ourselves. If we look at ourselves, that self-care is not selfish, that it is our job, it is our duty, it's our responsibility to take care of ourselves and to pour into us the same way we pour out to other people, because we're much better once we have taken care of home. And so my goal is just to continue to empower women to focus on themselves, to take care of themselves, and then to turn outward and focus on our community and building our community and our children. And I know that that doesn't necessarily stop, that we have to do both and, right? We raise our families, but we also raise ourselves. We take care of our husbands, but we also have to take care of ourselves. We take care of our families and situations, but we also have to give ourselves that same type of energy. And so that is the message that I am preaching loud and proud right now. For women, for Black women specifically, but for all women. And what I have heard, the feedback that I'm getting is that the messages that I'm giving are for everybody. So I market them to Black women, but everybody can benefit from it. So please, if you are willing, please follow me, like it, wherever you are. I'm on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. I think it's on YouTube. It's not on Twitter. I never did do Twitter. And it will be on LinkedIn soon.
I'm not on Twitter either. But I do everything else. I want to go back to this, and I'm speaking about this because I've had this conversation with friends of mine. The experiences of Black women can be very traumatic. The labeling and the narrative about who Black women are and what they're supposed to be is not realistic, but many Black women internalize it and try to live up to those expectations. And they find themselves empty. This whole idea of being a strong Black woman. I had this conversation just last week, and a friend of mine simply said to me, you know, I am strong, but sometimes I don't want to always have to be strong. You know, I want people to know I'm strong, but I also desire love. That I want to be vulnerable. You know, I want to be catered to. And the idea is if I show up in a room and I can run the room and manage it and lead it, that I'm a woman who is not looking for love or who requires love or who even deserves love, right? And she finds herself, and I'm speaking specifically about one person, navigating through this world feeling very lonely, successful professionally, but lonely personally. How do women, and I know there are other women who are dealing with the same issue, besides therapy, which you're advocating for, which I also support, which she is getting, which has helped her tremendously. How do we reconcile with that emotion? And it's almost this duality of being a woman, but also a Black woman, right?
Well, the intersectionality of Black womanhood is just a special place anyway, right? Because when I walk into a space, I am both of those things. Before you know anything else about me, I am both Black and I am a woman. And so whatever you feel about Black people and whatever you feel about women, and then whatever you feel about Black women specifically, you will lay those burdens on me immediately before you know anything else about me. And so that becomes troublesome for Black women just in general, because we walk into the burdens of other people's expectations and realities everywhere we go. And that's, a lot of people have that experience, not just Black women, but we're talking about Black women right now.
Yeah.
Then we talk about stereotypes, right? So I did my dissertation, we're back there on stereotypic images. And so what we know about stereotypes is that stereotypes are truths about small groups that are applied to the mass.
Yeah.
Are there Black women on welfare? Yes. Are all Black women on welfare? No, but the welfare queen trope is a big trope. If you got too many kids, they don't care what kind of job you have. You're a welfare queen, right? Yeah. Just because a Black woman with a bunch of kids, that's the issue. Those might not even be her kids, but that's what we will assign to a Black woman, right? Then you have the strong Black woman, and the woman who can lead in the room, who is professionally successful, is assigned to that matriarch stereotype. The matriarch stereotype is thought to be emasculating. Well, she is portrayed as an emasculating female. Yeah. Well, that, if you believe that strong women are emasculating as a man, then you're not going to be attracted to a strong woman, a professionally strong woman. And most of that is rooted in fear, right? That you will then be emasculated by this woman. It has a lot to do with patriarchy. It has a lot to do with societal norms about money and funding and who's supposed to be the breadwinner and who's supposed to, have all of these things. And so that can be challenging. And I wish I had the answer for what do you do to get other people to understand that that's not who you are as a professional woman, that you are deserving and wanting of that love and soft space. But the big answer is that we have to continue to challenge the notion that strong people are not vulnerable people. And we have to continue to challenge the notion that strength and endurance are the same thing. They are different words and they have different definitions. So the fact that you can endure hardship does not make you strong. And the fact that you are strong does not mean that you want to endure hardship. Those two things don't go hand in hand. And so we assigned the fact that Black women were workhorses in slavery. We took that understanding and made it be the national anthem for Black women, that you can be the workhorse, that you can get things done. And then in an effort to reclaim our own identity, we took some of these stereotypes and tried to spin them and make them be good, right? So I can do all of these things because I'm a strong Black woman, when that wasn't necessarily what the intention was, right? It's just like when we talk about the N word, right? We tried to take it and make it our own.
Yes.
And so we're going to take the ER off, put an A at the end, and now it's a term of endearment, when it's still rooted in problem. It's problematic, right? And so that's the same thing that's happened with some of the images, the portrayals, and the stereotypes of Black women, is that we are trying to own our own identity, but these identities are rooted in the stories of other people. And so until we start to define ourselves and require that other people address us in our definitions of ourselves, not in their definition of us, we're going to continue to have these issues. I will say that I was blessed, and I know that one of the things that attracted me to my husband when I met him was that I had been dating in my doctoral program, and I kept meeting people who were like, why you want to be in school? Like, why would you even do this? And my husband was like, oh, okay, you're in school. That's cool. How can I help you? What do you need here? And so that was a difference for me. Everyone doesn't have that experience, and I completely understand that. And so what I know is that being strong, having endurance, and being a Black woman can be lonely whether you have a partner or not.
Yeah, wow. Say that again. Say that again.
Being strong, having endurance, and being a Black woman can be lonely whether you have a partner or not. And so I think that people think that if they had a mate, they would not then be lonely. And that's still not the case. That you can be fulfilled in one area and not fulfilled in other areas. And so I think separating those things, that you need a partner, you want a partner. I want my marriage to last. I want you to have the partner that you desire to have. But there's something to the fact that as Black women, being misunderstood, being required of differently, being leaned on differently, having to bear the weight of all of those stereotypes and the stereotypic images, and then trying to combat them, right? Because there are a lot of us who walk into spaces so hell-bent on not being perceived as something that we don't show up authentically.
Yes. Yeah.
And we don't even feel that we can show up authentically. And then sometimes we get to a place where we don't even know what authentic looks like for us in that space, right? That in and of itself is lonely. And so I think there are two issues. There's the issue of being a Black woman in spaces of power. And then there's the issues of being a Black woman in loving relationships. And both of those are complex and riddled with challenge. And so when you are intersecting those two things, it can be very difficult.
Wow. You said a lot of amazing things. I'm a Black man, and I'm like, yes, because everything that you said about a Black woman, for Black men to show up in spaces, they support or they enable and perpetuate some of these same beliefs on Black women.
Absolutely.
And so we too, as you're saying, we need to go through and get some help so we can help minimize, destroy these labels and stereotypes of Black women, which also impact the way we walk through the world as Black men.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Okay, let me move off that because this is getting real good. I'm getting excited. With all of this great work, what's next for you in the next 5 to 10 years? Like, what do you see yourself doing?
Everything. We have started, and again, I said this to you earlier. I think that one of the biggest benefits for me of having gone through and got my doctorate is that when I try something new, I have the credentials that people will believe that I can do whatever it is that I'm trying new. And so I don't know what I want. I don't know that there is a solitary destination that I'm trying to get to. There are so many things that I want to do, and I don't see it as I can only do this one thing. And so I am, doing the Black Women's Wellness. We have the African American Honors Collective, where we are working with companies to really highlight honors students specifically, but students who see themselves as serious in academic spaces, and how we get those students the opportunities that they need and deserve in corporate spaces and in workspaces. So we're working in that area, working with students for scholarships and fellowships, and really trying to highlight the excellence that is Black and HBCU scholars, because we don't always get the credit that we deserve. We know that, right? I'm also doing some speaking. I'm working with several different companies doing trainings and speaking engagements on things ranging from education, ranging from special education to parenting to wellness and health, and then also in the DEI space. So I am kind of everywhere. And in the next 5 years, I really do hope that I will continue to produce work that is meaningful. I need to write a book. I've been saying that. I really do want to I have article publications, but I really do want to write a book. But I have so many things, it's probably like 5 books, because I don't know what book I want to write first, right? So there's that. And my goal, my hope is that in 5 years and 15 years and 20 years that I will have made a difference in people's lives, and I will have shown somebody how to be their best self, how to live in this world as wholly as they possibly can. And that I'm speaking that not just as a practitioner or a clinician, but as a woman, a Black woman who is also walking this journey of making the best decision for myself. Making the best decision for my family, making the best decision that I know how to make at the time. And if that doesn't work out, I make another decision. My mom taught me that when I was younger, and it is a mantra that I stick by, that there's no such thing as a bad decision when it's rooted in truth and reality. Right. So you make the best decision that you can. And if that doesn't work out, you make another decision. And sometimes we have to take a step and regroup. And that's where I am right now. I had to take a step back. I left a job. I relocated my family. It was the best decision. I didn't relocate my family. My family and I relocated. We did it together. But it was the best decision that we could make. And so I'm in a season of regrouping and trying to figure out, what the next thing is. If I want to go back into full-time higher education administration, if I just want to teach. And the good news is that I can do it all. I can do all of those things. And so I'm excited about that. I don't know what I want to do just yet. And I don't know, where my name is being spoken at this space. So who's going to call me next? And so that's also exciting to know that I have these opportunities coming, but I also don't take it for granted that I have an opportunity to rest that some people don't have, that everybody can't take a step back. And so in this moment, I'm trying to utilize that well, to be of service to people around me walking the same journey.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I'm just so excited to talk to you and that you were able to come on and share with us for the podcast. You're just saying some things that I think they're going to really connect with a lot of people and really make them think about how they're moving through life in their next phase, in their next season. I want to talk a little bit about BDN. We are so excited to have people like you connect with us. So let's talk about your relationship with BDN, what you're looking for. How has the experience been thus far?
So I actually presented at BDN in 2014 for the very first time in Philadelphia. And I presented on my dissertation, and I was very excited at that time. I had just well, I graduated in 2012. So I was a new professional trying to, figure out what my next steps were. And I got connected in 2014, and I have been connected since then. When I was at Hampton as the director, I brought students to the conference virtually. We were supposed to come in person, but in 2020 and 21, I brought students to the conference. I've presented at the conference. The African American Honors Collective presented in 2020. And I love the organization. I met Dr. Green in 2014 and have connected with him. And I stand strongly behind the mission, the goals of this organization. And I'll always be a member. I always plug it. I try to get my students to come out and participate in it, because what I know about being anything in this society, being Black in that is important in our identity. And so having a space where you can be Black in whatever that is important. And so being an educational professional, if you will, but having a doctoral degree is, that 2% of the population. But when we look at the 2% of the Black population, it's even smaller than that too, right?
Yeah.
So having a space where we can come together to talk about those things, but that we can highlight each other, we can herald each other, we can support one another. I love it. I love everything about it. And so I will always support in any way that I can.
Again, I just really appreciate you. You have been one of our longtime members. So we have a lot of people that are coming in now, but you've been around for a very, very long time. So you've seen how BDN has grown over the years, which is just amazing. And we're still growing every year and just doing new things, offering new programming, seminars, networks, events, workshops for those who are interested or who are currently in a program. So there's just a lot of things going on. And I'm so honored to be able to highlight you in this conversation during the podcast. So if you don't mind, give our viewers and our listeners an opportunity to know where they can go and connect with you on your social media accounts, just to learn about all these great things that are happening.
Okay, you can find me at Dr. Rikesha on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, soon to be on LinkedIn. I am on LinkedIn, and on YouTube. I'll have some shorts going up there shortly as well. You can email me at drrikesha@gmail.com if you are interested in connecting with me in any way. And I am just excited to be here. Thank you all so much for highlighting me, for thinking of me, and for having me here today.
Well, no problem, guys. You got all the information you need. So go and connect with Dr. Rikesha Fry Brown. And she's right here in the metro Atlanta area. So I know a lot of you guys are here too. So this is a great opportunity to start building those relationships. While you're connecting with Dr. Fry Brown, go ahead and connect with BDN on all of our social media channels as well. We would love to share with you. Again, we have so much out there that I think would benefit many of you all. Well, guys, thank you so much for watching, for tuning in, for listening, for receiving the gems that have been dropped today by Dr. Fry Brown. I hope that you use them well, because they were free. Now, I will be back next week with another amazing guest. But until then, guys, please be safe and be blessed. I'll see you guys soon.